Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Painting for Pleasure. Today we're going to do a lighthouse. It was sent in to me by one of our students, one of the people that we're working with on a regular basis, and that's it. That's the piece right there. It's a lighthouse that's up in Portland, Maine, and so we're going to do it. Wait a minute, Portland, Maine, or Portland? Yeah, Portland, Maine. Yes, it's Portland, Maine. Okay, anyway, that's the one that we're going to do. She thought it might be a nice thing to do because it does show a strong definition of rocks, the sky, a little bit of water, and primarily the lighthouse. Now, normally I wouldn't do this way because I'm not a real big believer in centering everything, which this is basically. But for the purposes of doing a painting, teaching how to handle the rocks and the lighthouse and so forth, and the sky and all of that other good stuff, I think it's appropriate. So we're going to go ahead and do it, and I'm going to put it over here. So let me just put it up here so that I can see it, and we can go from there. Now, I've already roughed it out, and we're going to start off by wetting the area, and I'm going to basically, the way I look at this thing, if you squint, the sky is going to be light, a little bit not as light as the absolute white of the White House, which we will leave white, but essentially the sky is going to be light. There's a light area on the top of the rocks, and mid values and dark values on the side and in the water. So that's the way we'll handle it. So normally, what do I usually do? We start off by wetting the sky. That's the first thing we want to do, is to get the sky nice and wet. And I'm going to go right through the area of the lighthouse where it's sort of dark. That's white, but I won't allow the sky to go in there. And I'm just sort of painting around. This is a plug, actually, is what it is. It's like a spark plug. We used to call these things spark plugs. I don't know if they still do or not, but anyway. So we're going to wet this thoroughly. Let it thoroughly saturate. Get my wider brush and just, again, with soaking this down into the water, and we're going to do it on the same side down into the water. So we're wetting it all the way around the rocks, and what we're leaving white is the lighthouse itself, where actually it's dry. The one thing I do want to do is take a tissue, and I want to just quickly touch this little area right here, down below, right in, let's see, where is it? It's right in this area right here. I want that dry too. Okay, so good. So now we got it nice and wet. And we have to make a choice here in terms of the sky. And if I bring this back over here, we're going to take a look at it. And the sky has some movement going in that direction. And actually, if it goes back way far enough, the clouds, it starts to get a little horizontal. But we're not going to worry about that so much. But we want to get some clouds in the sky. So again, that's going to be important. So we're going to start off with cobalt blue. And I'm going to start off with a mixture of cobalt blue. And I'm going to start off with cobalt blue, and I'm going to put in a little bit of my opera. In other words, get it nice and... Let's just bring this over here so that you can see what I'm doing. So what I did is I just brought in cobalt blue. I'll do it again. All right, so this is cobalt blue. All right, we'll rinse the brush out a little bit. Come in here and pick up a little bit of the opera. So see how it gets a little bit on the purplish side. Add a little bit of cobalt blue. Get it back to a little bit more purple blue. All right, so I'm going to start. I'm going to start off with that as my sky, and I'm going to get a little bit more cobalt blue. Keep getting a little bit more cobalt blue in this. Now the reason I want it nice and wet, a little bit more cobalt blue, more pure cobalt blue, and we're just going to go right, because I'm going to be painting over some of this lighthouse, so I'm not too overly concerned about it going through some of the drawing that I have up there, because I'm going to end up painting that anyway. I'm going to end up going through that anyway. So, for instance, all of the stuff that's over here and on either side of this, we can have sky, okay? And as I go back, I'm going to get it bluer and bluer, blue-gray, so I'm going to add a little bit of... Now I'm going to go back a little bit, and I'm going to add a little bit more cobalt blue, but I'm going to mix this in with my burnt sienna. All right, so remember we've been doing a lot of this mixing of burnt sienna, cobalt blue, and a little bit of opera. Okay, so it's a little bit grayer as we go back. And again, I'm coming over here, and I'm just going to start touching this as we go back a little bit. And I'm working around, if you'll notice, I'm basically working around my lighthouse. I'm not going into where the lighthouse is actually white, but I am working around it. In this little area right here, and I'm going to just show you this. I'm going to just sort of bring this in. I have a bit of a dark area that's going to come in here on the lighthouse, so just sort of we're working around that. And this is all going to be dark in the bottom, so that's kind of cool. In the same way with this. Now I came around this. My sky is going to go right through this down here, and this is all going to be dark anyway, so I'm not too worried, because we're going to just go over that with even a darker color. And I'm going to come down right into this area here. Now this is my sky, and we're just going to let this thing, I'm going to wet this all over here, wet this, and allow the sky to do some crazy stuff here. All right, so now I'm going to come down into here from the sky, and you notice that I didn't do too much with this at all. I'm allowing some of these areas right here to just soften up a bit more. This is just totally saturated with water, so we're just going to bring all of this down, because this is all going to be painted darker, this whole area down here, and this is all going to be painted darker. So we'll just come right down here, and we'll just let that flow right into that area here. It's all going to be painted darker. And the darkness I'm going to use is going to be I'm going to go to my other blue. I'm going to mix in a little bit of French ultramarine blue now, and in this area over here with cobalt blue. Combination of French ultramarine blue. Okay, so it's coming over here with French ultramarine blue, cobalt blue. French ultramarine blue, because it's going to be, the water in the back is going to be dark. Okay, now French ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, in the areas where the water, the ocean, the bay, if you will, is going to be. So we're putting that color in. I'm going to make it even deeper. and add to it a little bit of French ultramarine blue, and I'm going to add a little bit of burnt sienna to that. And again, darker. More pigment. And now I'm going to get into more pigment than water. A little bit of French ultramarine blue here. Let's get that nice and dark. Build this all up. French ultramarine blue. Okay. So it's predominantly, we got a lot of blue going on, don't we? All right, so let's just let that set up a bit. So again, this is all nice and wet. We're just going to end up taking the tissue, a little bit of tissue here. As this dries, we're just going to come in here and we're going to just present what is now with some clouds. Make it a little bit lighter. Same way with down here, it seems to be. We can make this nice and light back here. So we just popped out some of that. And we can pop out a few more clouds if we want to by just taking clear water. If I wanted to do this and just come in here, for instance, maybe we got a nice white area right here. A little bit lighter. So you can add a little bit of water to the watered area and bring that about a little bit more. So we've got a definition between my sky, which is going to be light, and my water, which is going to be a little bit on the dark side. Now this is still a lot of pretty wet, and what I want to do is I want to start to bring in, for instance, I want to get some water in here because I'm going to start to bring in some light values, light warmer colors, I guess is where I'm going with this thing in the rocks. And so we got this thing. This is sort of like a bluish cast to it, and that's okay right there and there because it's going to be some of the warm. It's going to be in shadows, but I'm going to bring that. I'm going to bring some warmer colors into that right now. And what I'm doing is I'm just cleaning my palette. And I want to get another tissue and take a look at. And I'm squinting at this whole thing. Take a look at this, and what I'm doing is I'm going to say, well, pretty much a lot of this stuff is going to be on the warm side. And on the warm side, it's going to be yellow and yellow. Sort of the rocks are sort of yellow and greenish yellow, so there'll be some blue introduced to it. But here's what I'm getting at: is that in order for me to get the undertone of this, I'm going to start to put in some of this yellow, green. And I'm wetting this paper because again I'm going to go through the same thing. This is underpainting, and it's all I need something underneath it that's going to say warmth. All right, and we're going to add a little bit of my yellow ochre here in certain areas. All right, a little bit of yellow ochre, and I'm keeping it wet, light and wet. Okay, a little bit of yellow ochre, and I'm going to come in here with a little bit more of an intense yellow orange. Now this is, again, all of this stuff is fairly warm in certain areas, so we want to make sure that we get that general feel overall. So it's a little bit more of a stronger yellow ochre, and my red, and I added a little bit of red to that yellow. Here's my yellow ochre. Let's see if I can show you what I did. Yellow ochre right here, and I'm bringing in this pyrrole red. Whoops, too much. That's way too much right now. We need to get that a little bit orangey. So we're going to go back to the yellow ochre. And we're going to do a variety of these colors. Okay, so we're working with warms and we're working with cools. And I'm just sort of putting some of this stuff in here and making my decisions just arbitrarily. I'm not really following a lot of what's going on over there. I just want to put some warmth in there in these rocks, and I'll just show you, and I'm just arbitrarily putting them in so that there's some yellows and yellow, and adding a little bit more blue. Alright, so we're going to end up getting blues and blue greens as we come down here. What I just did is coming in here and picking up some some cerulean blue to add into here for this area down here. So you see, I'm just sort of mixing a lot of this stuff up. So down in this area, it's going to be a little bit darker. Cerulean blue. Coming in here with some cerulean blue. It's going to get real brown in there pretty soon. Some cerulean blue. And looking at this arbitrary areas, rocks that are going to go in here. And that, I just took some of that cerulean blue and just put it up in here. I'm going to make that really dark anyway, so it doesn't make any difference. But just to give it some continuity among what's going on. All right, so again, this is all wet. It's just going to go wherever it wants to go. Now what I'm going to do is just allow this all to play and dry. Just sort of take its time and allow it to just all blend together. Because again, this is what I'm doing here is it's my underpainting, and I'm going to I'll put some dark rocks in here, and dark values in here to indicate more of what I want. But this is in terms of how to define these rocks and my lighthouse. But there are things that I can't do with a big brush, and I want to go back up in here and do a lot of that stuff. But we're going to let this set up a bit. Just give it some time, and we'll talk about what it is. So basically we have something that's cooler to warm. We got all this stuff over here is nice and warm, and everything in the background is going to be on the cool side. So you can see there's a transition that's taking place as this dries. My combination of different warms and cools are all sort of slowly bleeding together. Gradually there's a graduation of this color that's muted into other colors. So you're gonna end up having this nice and soft pretty soon, and it's just gonna blend together and it'll make some cool colors. While I'm waiting for that, there are certain areas that I want to get a little bit lighter, so I'm taking a tissue and I'm going to just press down here and lift out. All right, press down as it's wet and lift out. So what we're doing is we're creating some lighter spots on the rocks that are going to give me some light values here and there as I look at this, because I put the color down and now I'm lifting the color out, right? So we're just going to end up coming across here, and we want this lighter here, and we want some of this Over here a little bit lighter. Some of it's going to be dark. Lighter as we come across here. Certainly a little bit lighter over here. And maybe we're going to hit the tops of these rocks in the foreground with some light areas. That's going to be lighter. So you see what I've done is I've just sort of lifted a lot of that stuff off, but I still have that nice blend going. And that's important. That's an important part of this whole thing. Now what I'm also going to do here is I'm going to take my brush. I'm going to pick up some darker values. Some of this, some of this area here where I've mixed my my yellow ochre and my red together lightly, and then I added some cerulean blue, and it's a sort of brownish. And I'm coming in here and I'm just going to pick that up. And what I want to do is this. Because the rocks that I'm looking at are going to have some texture to them. So what I'm trying to do is to give this a little bit more of an interesting sort of, I guess, surface texture, rocky texture. It's all on the surface, and that's going to just sort of blend in with everything that I'm doing here. It'll create a little bit more interest. Make some a little bit darker. I'm taking my burnt sienna and mixing it up with my cerulean blue. And maybe even some blue, cobalt blue in here. Let's see. Make it a little darker. And this, again, this is all still wet, remember, so we actually have a nice dark, strong, wet area here. This is coming back here this way. And then we get some shadow areas on some of these rocks as they work their way out. Now all I'm doing is this is still light and wet, but I'm using some tonal values that are going to actually end up indicating some shadow on these wonderful rocks that I'm working on here. And the shadows are going to be on the blue side. But what we're doing is we're really creating, we want to create the illusion that we've got some interesting boulders and rocks on this jetty going out. And some of these areas are going to be pretty dark as I get out here. For instance, the areas out here, we're going to end up taking a lot of burnt sienna, and I'm going to mix that with my burnt sienna with my French ultramarine blue. And we have areas out here that are going to be really dark. And those areas that are dark are going to be basically areas that are normally tidal areas, where the tide comes up to these sort of rocks up in this area here. Of the high tide, so the tide is a bit low in certain areas here. This is all going to come back. Same way with the other side is that if we just have to come in here and do the same thing, and we're going to do that a little bit more with my yellow ochre and my burnt sienna, and we'll start to get this a little bit some a little bit more interesting values in here, and maybe a couple of them here. We'll do that. Okay. Go back to my reds. I got my pyro red in here with a little bit of mixture of my cobalt blue. And I'm coming in to just start to pick up some areas that are a little darker here. On my rocks. So that maybe that's there. Maybe we got one, and we have stuff that's happening over here. Again, we're trying to keep this loose. This is a wet into wet technique, so I'm not looking at all of this to really define it with absolute accuracy. I'm more interested in what we can do to help create the illusion of jetty without actually drawing it all out, without actually trying to do detailed work. So what I'm just doing is sort of filling in some certain areas that I think are going to be more effective if they're darker. A little bit of water in this area. Just take some water. Just clean water. That's all I'm doing. Splattering with this. We're splattering with some just pure water here. Let bring some of that back. And this we're going to define a little bit more. We'll take care of that. But let's get my general feeling of my rocks going out. Those areas over there. And then we'll start to put in some detail. A little bit more detail in terms of the darks and the lights. This actually is darker under here. It's all darker under here too. And if I can do this, we have an area right over here. It's going to be darker as well. Okay, and this is all going to be darker over here. And this, whoop, that's not right. I'm sorry. My apologies. I did that wrong. That's white. I'm looking at this area up here instead. So we're going to have to fix that. My goodness. So this area is darker. And I can get over here, because I'm trying to keep my head out of the way. Top of that lighthouse. Now, let's just do this, because we got some little speckle spots that I just popped up in here. They could be little birds flying later, but if we can get them out of here, I'd rather get them out of here. All right, so we're just going to start to slowly build this lighthouse. While all of this stuff here is setting up. And I'm coming in here with my French ultramarine blue, the cobalt blue, and burnt sienna. Okay? So we'll make this nice and dark. Here, here's what I'm going to get. See, it's on the blue side. Burnt sienna, going to make it darker. See that? Darker. And I'm going to add in some of these areas here. And just drop some nice value in there, strong value. Now this is not as dark up in the top. This area up here is dark, but it's nowhere near as dark. And again, see what I'm doing is I'm just adding brush strokes in here. I'm not really trying to draw this all out accurately, because sometimes it just makes it a little bit better if it's just, if everything blends together. And sometimes it's better if it's not super. It has to be architecturally accurate, but it does not necessarily have to be drawn to the point where you just have to stay within those lines. Let's go back up here and get my long pole here so that I can keep my head out of the way, but just come over here and I can take and drop that in there like that, and come around here. We'll probably have to clean that up a bit. Probably should use a thinner brush to do this with. What we're trying to create is an illusion anyway, so it's okay. Right, so we're starting to take a look at what's bringing that about a little bit more. We have a slight little window in here, little window in there, and we have the same thing down here. We have some window in here, and maybe one here. And we need to make this a little bit darker. A little bit darker. And we'll start to bring that all about pretty soon. Okay. I'm going back to trying to fill in some of these lines now. These lines being my sort of darker areas that are defining these rocks a little bit more. Maybe one here. These are my dark values. And we'll do the same thing with some of this stuff over here. Make this dark. Right. We're creating an illusion. Again, I'm not trying to. But I want to stay away from drawing this. I want to stay away from really actually coming in here and just giving you fine lines. Just put some shadowed areas in here and there to try to make this, create this. It's just much more of an interesting illusion. And so if I can get really light, way more water in this stuff than I normally do, and just and that water will dry a lot lighter, by the way. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking just pure water, almost pure water right now. There's little tonal colors in, from what I've been painting in the brush, but essentially just going in here and sort of defining some of these rocks that way. Just we'll take a little bit, just this is just all I'm doing is toning this. Yeah. Now I just added a little bit of my what is it? It's probably my a little bit of stronger yellow, my cadmium yellow or cadmium orange. I have a little bit of it here, so I'm just adding that. So it may not be a bad idea to just put some of that in there because it'll give you some of the. See this? See how bright that is? Okay, so just change it up a little bit more. It'll help. It'll help with the rusted, the sort of like the rusted looks of the rocks too. So maybe add some of that down here. And we'll make this a lot darker. This is all going to be darker down here. Because, again, what did we say? The tidal areas where the water comes up at high tide on these rocks are a lot darker. See, what I'm doing is I'm just making rocks, guys. Some of these rocks have nice flat edges to them. Some of them are going to be not so flat. Some of this stuff is a little bit darker in here. I'm going to help this along a little bit more. You know, maybe there's a super darks in these areas here. Added a little bit of lavender to that one. Taking some of that lavender and, yeah, let's try something. A little bit of lavender and a little bit of my opera. Change it up a bit. That's kind of cool too. That's nice. And some nice darks down here too. Let's do those. Let's take my French ultramarine blue, and I'm going to add a little bit of opera to that. French ultramarine blue, a little bit of opera to it. And let's get my burnt sienna in that one too. So we'll mix it up so that we got a little bit of opera, a little bit of burnt sienna. Here's the burnt sienna, French ultramarine blue, a little bit of opera. What I'm trying to do is to create a nice dark, so I can bring that dark into a reddish dark, closer to the water's edge. Okay, so we're going to end up bringing all of this stuff down. There you go. Okay, so that's going to go in there. We're going to bring some more of that dark over here. Alrighty, and we have dark area over here. I'm going to make that actually darker. We have some more dark areas here too. So it's just a matter of working my darks and lights back and forth. Some of it's going to be bluer, some of it's going to be browner. But it's important, I guess the most important thing to think about here is that you need to get some form to these structures that are, these boulders, these quarried stone that are out there on the jetty. And that's critical, I guess. Yeah, let's go around. Okay. So again, this is just it's basically a building. We're just building the jetty out here a little bit more. We need to convince everybody that it's a jetty. I guess. I mean, that's what it's about. I imagine is that these little kids are gonna, or everybody, the adults too, are gonna end up walking out the jetty to go out to see that lighthouse. So let's just sort of put that stuff in there. And we'll just bring this all about. So this is all sort of going to be, I'm going to end up doing the same thing. I'm going to take my lavender, and let it go in here. No, I'm not doing it, just doing it lightly, but I'm not doing it so hard that it's going to go everywhere. But I want some of this all to play together. Try to keep this out of the sky, but these boulders certainly have texture and character to them, so that one way to do that is to do it like this. Right. Uh-oh, look at what I did. Good thing that's dry. Got too carried away. All right, so now we've got some stuff going on here, and while that's setting up, let's go back in and do a little bit more detail work in and around the lighthouse. So what I'll get is my a little bit smaller brush. We'll work with this brush here because it's my dagger brush. And we're going to go back in here, and I'm going to end up, whoops, you got more stuff in here, don't we, huh? Let's get some of that. Let's get a clean paper towel here. Clean tissue. We're going to end up having a lot of birds in the sky pretty soon if we don't sort of take some of this stuff out of here. Okay. Okay, so what I have here is that I got some detail that I've got to take care of up in this area. And I'm hopefully my head's out of the way. I think it is. All right, so I don't want too much water in this thing, so I need to get some real solid color. Very little pigment. I'm sorry, very little water, a lot of pigment. Okay, it's not quite dry brush, but nonetheless, I'm coming in here. I'm going to start to make that darker. Give me that. There's still too much water, I think, in this, but maybe we can work it. Okay. I'm doing is I'm adding some cerulean blue to that area up there. It's a little bit off. I think it's a little bit on the crooked side. Let me see. This I maybe have to get it back a bit. Yeah, it's a little bit crooked. Let me just see if I can fix this. Good. Good, good, good. All right. And it looks like what I've got let's get some of this. We got a little bit of an area right here that's in this. It's going to come down. It's a little bit on the dark side. Oh, we got a door right in here too, don't we? We're going to just put that door right in here. Okay, close enough. And let's do this. It's a little bit on the crooked side, so see if I can get that out of there. Okay. So let's get some more interest in this. Down here, as we have these stanchions that are coming down. We don't need to be super accurate, but we need to be somewhat accurate. Sorry if the head got in the way, guys. Now I'm doing this all by brush. And one of the ways, I mean, you probably have another way to do this would be probably to utilize maybe some watercolor pencils if you want to try to get these lines absolutely straight, but I'm not necessarily trying for straight lines. Well, I want them somewhat straight, obviously, because you don't want it to look askew. And we're just touching base here with this stuff. I need something that's a little darker in here. The door up here. A little bit darker down here. A little darker on the window right there. This is super dark in here, we don't even see that. Oh, my. Problem is accuracy. It looks, you want to make it look somewhat real, huh? All right, let's go back and do this. Still on the wet side. And dry a little bit more still. Okay. What the heck's happening here? How did I get that in there? Okay. Gonna make this even darker. Okay. And the same way, a little bit more of pigment. Pigment. Go back in here, and we're just going to go back and touch this. Touch that. Making this real dark. I'm going to cross here. Okay. Alrighty. This needs to be darker. This needs to be all darker. All right. Oh. A little heavy. A little heavy. Again, there's another way to do this, and that is, like I said, if I wanted this thing to be absolutely right on the money, accurate, I'd be using a really thin, probably color pencil rather than my brush. But I think at this stage, we might be able to just do it this way. I don't know. And best thing to do with these is do quick swings on those things, but give you some idea as to where it's at. All right, so now that I've got that sort of where I want it, roughly where I want it, let's put the land in, the land mass in the background. We've got this, and that's going to be on the greenish side, greenish gray side, so we're going to use a little bit of my yellow and blue. I'm going to end up, what I've just done is I'm mixing up a little bit of my cobalt blue, which is right here, and a little bit of my new gamboge together. So I'm getting this sort of greenish look. Can you see it? So it's going to be right like so. We're going to end up putting this back here, and I think I can go right through this because I'm going to end up doing those over anyway. So let's just take this and add. So this is my little bit of landmass back here. Same thing over here. We got and they kick this in. Now, there's something that's out there that I don't know what it is, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. I mean, it looks like a building of some sort. It is a building out there, and it's probably on a peninsula. But rather than go through the process of even dealing with it and not knowing, we're just going to let it go. I do want to put in a few darker areas over here to help define this. So I'm going to end up doing the same thing over here. This is it's got some, it's a darker green blue. All right. There's a couple of signs here. I'm not sure I'm going to put them in. I might, we'll see. So let's get all of this over here. This is sort of like a turquoise, my waterway. Okay, remember I had French ultramarine blue under here, so combining this with this sort of green blue should be interesting. A little bit of blue, a little bit of my, there you go. I'm sorry. Looks like this is going to retape this. It's coming undone. Okay, we'll probably get that, some of that even a little bit darker as well. But let's go back now and start to really define my the side of my rocks a little bit more. Nice and yeah, super darks there. I just took that out. Too wet. We'll fix that in a minute. Getting a little bit more dry brush activity here. Not a lot of pigment, very little water. A lot of pigment, very little water. And we're trying to get it super dark, those areas there. And we're going to end up starting to do the same thing in some of these crevices. Where it's really dark crevices. Rock. Taking a little bit of, just a little bit of water, just going over this area, and then popping it out. So I get some more sort of rock area. Here, and give you an example right here. Let's do this one. A little bit of water, pop it out. Okay. A little bit of water. All right, so we'll fix that. We'll fix that. Got a little bit of a landmass up back there. And now, for our final, let's start to take a look at defining with some shadow in here. Now, here's what I'm doing. See all of this in here, it's fairly light. That's what I'm working with, is this. Combination of whatever's on my palette, a little bit of reds, oranges, blues, yellows. I'm just going in here and I'm gonna start to pick up a little bit of this light stuff and create some of the rocky textural surfaces that are on these quarried stone. Okay. Just This is all quarried stone, right? Now, this is the area here. This is sort of darker down here because it's in shadow. A little bit more in shadow. Right. Okay. This is going to be in shadow here. Nice big flat stone that's right there. Let's change this up a bit. Alright, and then on this side here, let's just do this. Give it a ridge, some shadow going down, and all of this. Do the same thing on all of this, and I'm just using, again, I'm just going through the process of using some of the blue stuff that I have here. And then maybe some of this stuff over here. Yeah. Okay, we got some drill, a little bit of a shadowed area in here. Let's just put that in. Okay, a little ridge coming across the top of this one. All right. Nice and dark down there. We got a real one right here. Let's get this nice and dark over here too. Okay, so this is just, we're just going over here and just outlining things. Let me take a little bit of that cadmium yellow, cadmium orange. Maybe we'll put some in here. Some in here. A little bit of orange red. Okay. Let's get this nice end. Let's get this nice and dark in here. See what I'm talking about? It's just modeling. That's what we're really doing here. We're modeling this thing. All right. Let's get same thing with this here. We got this. Not too much. Okay. We're just about done. See if I can get it's still looks like it's still a little bit on the wet side, maybe, huh? Not sure. Okay, so we've got our jetty going out. Looks fairly good. The nice dark blue water that's there. I'm going to take this. Here's what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to glaze over this. I just took some phthalo blue. I don't know if this is a good idea or not, but we're doing it. We're just glazing over the water. Why? I don't know. I just wanted to try it out. Let it go. Ooh. A little bit of a glaze. All right, so the only other thing I have to do is take a little bit of warm color and toss it in here. And so this doesn't look so flat. Just gives it a little bit more interest. That's it for today. I think I killed it with a phthalo. I think. I'm just going to end up taking some tissue and removing some of this so it's not as heavy. So that's it. That's my painting for the day. Let's see. Oh, geez, you don't even see the top of it. I've been painting the top of that thing, and you haven't been able to see it. Well, let's bring it all down. Hopefully we'll get this thing so that it looks good in the video. Okay. I lost my nice darks here. Let's just get back here and just put some of those in. This is just straight burnt sienna. Right there. And I'm going to do the same thing over here because I lost some of these. That's what I get. That's what I get for trying to glaze over that too soon. One other thing I want to do, if I can do this, is just to take some of this, make it lighter, whiter, brighter. Out there. So I didn't put in the two signs that would normally be sitting out there. Try to keep it light, easy, with definition. Just straight bright. All I'm doing now is just straight dry brush. Okay. Hey guys. Okay, one last thing that I'm going to do with this is that I'm going to go back and give you an idea as to how you can beef this up or get it a little bit more crisper using colored pencils. Now, I'm not talking about color pencils across the board. I'm talking about watercolor specific color pencils. So watercolor pencils come in all colors and sizes and shapes and so forth and so on, and you know, there's a good brand. This particular brand here, DeWent, is a good brand. It's an English pencil. A quality color watercolor pencil will disperse the color in the pencil like it does with watercolor itself. So you want to make sure that you get a good color, a good series of color pencils to work with. But just to show you how this basically works, I'd come in here and say, okay, I've got this. The reason I got this little flag that's coming up over here with a little bit of color on the top, but it looks like something like a little red mark or something. But let's just say that we can easily do this by taking one of these, and we'll use this one here. This happens to be a Prussian blue color, and let's just do this. Nice and clean. Nice clean line there. Something that's over here pops up over here. You got a little something that happens there. Now that's nice and thin. You can create some real thin lines. Here is a imperial purple. Let's see. I'm looking for my dark pencil here. Let's use this black one. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is sharpen it, and then we'll continue with this. Okay, so you notice how this is a bit on the rough side, and this is sort of varies in color. So let's just come in here and put a little bit of dark over there, a little bit dark here, make this a little bit darker there. We'll bring this around. We can help to make that stand out a little bit more. Add a little bit of punch there, add a little bit of punch there. Maybe make this a little bit rounder down here to help it out. You can. What I'm saying is you can literally go back and crisp it up a bit here and there. Let's say that I could make that one a little bit darker. This tends to be a little bit darker here and here. This area right here is probably darker there. I'm just some of this smudged out, so I'm putting some of this back. Just gonna touch it. That's my painting. So thank you for being with me. I'm your host, Tony Visco, and until the next time, paint well. Thank you. Bye-bye.